6:03, the meeting is now called to order. Ms. Madine, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Item number 3, establishment of quorum.
Here.
Here.
Here. Here.
Mayor, we have a quorum.
Item number 4, public comment.
Mr. Moreira. Mr. Moreira, you have 3 minutes.
All right, I think I can keep it under 3 minutes, even though I didn't time myself. I wrote some notes here. As most of you on the city council probably know from copies of my emails to Representative Ralph Duran of District Number 2 on December 20th, 2018, the community problem that I've been presenting the last 5 years is noise pollution caused by train horn blares at all railroad intersections 24/7 in Socorro. It was first brought up at the Socorro City Council meeting on December 12, 2013. The idea of implementing railroad quiet zones was introduced as a possible solution, and it was recommended that this option be explored by 2 of the district representatives. I followed up with 3 letters of inquiry and suggestions to the city council as to the progress of resolving this train horn noise pollution problem in our community. And the dates of these letters were December 18th, 2013, July 3rd, 2014, and July 1st, 2015, but I received no response. I became increasingly concerned the last 5 years about the sleep disturbance or possible health issue that the train horn blares may be causing the residents of District Number 2 during nighttime sleeping hours. District Number 2 has the neighborhoods closest to the railroad crossings, Nevares, Moon Road, and North Rio Vista Road, less than 2 miles apart from each other, 2-mile stretch. Because as you probably know, the trains blare their horns 4 times before each railroad intersection on 24/7. And sometimes a train goes through Socorro at least every hour during increased train traffic. My family and I can hear the train horns from Wynn Road, where we live. So we feel for the residents of District Number 2, because sometimes we have even been woken up, believe it or not. Also during the day, when we're outside in good weather, that could be 3 seasons of the year, we get good weather here in El Paso. The peace of the outdoors, especially on weekends or every day for a lot of retirees like myself, are often disturbed by the frequent train horn blares. Again,
Mr. Moreira, your time is up.
Ooh, can I wrap it up?
You'll have an item number 14. You'll be able to discuss and talk a little bit more.
Okay, all right, sorry. But yeah, I would like the opportunity to, just a minute left.
Miriam Cruz. And for the record, Mayor Rene Rodriguez arrived to the meeting at 6:07. Ms. Cruz, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Ms. Navarro. Happy New Year, City Council. And thank you again for your service. Always appreciated. I want to thank the city for its new innovative initiatives that they continue to take on. I think that's all that Socorro can keep doing, is keep growing. Oh, my computer turned off. My report on Stockyard is that speeding's still happening. The lights have been turned on. Lights are on Stockyard Road, which was on the county side, which is good, because now people can potentially see if a kid's gonna run out in the middle of the night, or at 6 o'clock, because that's when it actually gets dark now. And the light across the street has also been turned on, which is in the city of Socorro, so that's good news. But there's still speeding happening. The blackout information suggestion that I had about when commissioners are being appointed, their personal information, seems that it was taken in part but not by everyone. So there's some personal information that was still showing on one of the persons that's going to get appointed today, such as their cell phone, their email, their home address. That's been public now, so, and it's been public since Monday, so just wanted to point that out. Also, some of the stuff that was actually blacked out, it's still visible. Sometimes when you scan stuff, and even though you blacked it out, because as you were scanning it, you can still see it. So I know that Mr. Chavez lives on Rio Vista, because you could see that, but I won't say any more than that. And the last thing that I wanted to mention were, again, that there are 2 individuals that are going to get appointed today to the Planning and Zoning Commission that have never attended a Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. That doesn't mean that they're maybe not going to serve and be great commissioners. I hope that they will be, and that they are. But again, I'm just presenting myself again, that I had been waiting for an appointment for more than over a year or more for that same commission. And like I've said before, I've attended those meetings at times better than some of the people that were appointed to them. And so it's unfortunate for me, but I hope that these people that are going to get appointed are going to be great. And even though they've never attended a meeting, you know, that's unfortunate. But and I'm getting that information from their own application. I'm not making that stuff up. The application asks if they've ever attended a public Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, and it says that they haven't. So that's unfortunate, because it's also going to take some time for them to catch up to what the commission has been working on. Other than that, I hope that we keep moving forward and start revamping our ordinances, since that's very important. Thank you.
Ms. Cruz, thank you. Salvador Chagoya. Mr. Chagoya, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening. First time to ever come to one of these meetings, and the reason why I'm here is because I've been seeing a lot of. I've grew up here. I've been here since the age of 5, and I've seen a lot of corruption. I've seen a lot of stuff that are being left unattended, and there has been a lot of unaccountability, for say. I ended up buying a house in District 2. I used to live in the old Socorro, for say. You know, my home is one of those houses, those 5-bedroom houses, and I pay pretty good penny on taxes. So what led me to come here was that a meeting with the city manager and the planning, and speaking to Mr. Ralph Duran as well, is that we do not have an ordinance when it comes to front yard parking. City of El Paso does have one. District 2 is starting to look like a colonia, and it's starting to look like a car lot. I do have a lot of pictures. I do have a lot of information that I have collected where there's up to 6 vehicles parked in a residential place. There's a semi-truck. I have gone to the PD. I have gone to planning and zoning. I have gone to different, identities within the city hall, per se. And I'm just getting the ball bounced around. I really don't have answers. I guess a lot of people are not really aware of what I'm asking for. And this is something that I want us to start looking at. You know, I want us to start cleaning up Socorro. I did see the YouTube video on the last meeting that you guys canceled 4 requests on that personal storage. So that's the first step of cleaning up Socorro. Don't let Horizon set the example. Horizon has not been a city as long as we have. And they already have an emergency room out there. They have nice restaurants. And I'm starting to see that based on the past meeting and what I'm bringing forth is that we're ending up to be a one-stop shop. And it's starting to look like a car lot. It's starting to look like a colonia. If we are a city, then let's start acting like a city. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Mayor, those were all our speakers.
Mayor, the gentleman just spoke. Can you give him information, because I have called in on semis on your area, because that's my biggest pet peeve, because they go over our curb and gutters and our sidewalks. I understand all that need. I have been, so if you want to get with city manager, there's already some stuff already on the works with that. So just letting you know that, at least for me, I do my due diligence and go out there and look, and what's not right is not right. So just so you can go with our city manager.
Ms. Villalobos?
I'm bringing this publicly. About a year and a half ago, más o menos, we took down the pictures in the front, if you guys would remember the pictures that we took down, and we were going to have students come and participate and draw, come up with a design for the lobby in the front. And
Excuse me, can I interrupt? We're not supposed to discuss that.
not even in public?
No. Public comment would be comment by the public.
I did ask if I could speak in public about this. Yes, ma'am.
Public comment.
Hold on.
She has to sign up? Or we'll just bring an item back?
Yeah, I mean, if you wanted, did you sign up to speak as a member of the public?
Well, I asked if I had to, because I wanted to, but I was told I didn't have to. And I did ask Mayor.
That's probably.
And that's okay.
I hate to say the mayor's wrong, but that's probably not accurate.
No, if it's not accurate, we'll leave it alone. I was just gonna ask for help, that's all.
We'll bring an item, Ms. Villalobos.
Yes, ma'am, thank you. That's fine. We'll leave it alone. Thank you.
Mr. Duran?
At this time, Mayor, I'd like to move up items number 15, 16, 20, 21, and 23.
Could you repeat that, please?
15, 16, 20, 21, and 23.
21, and 23. Motion, or second?
René Rodríguez,
Give me a minute.
Cesar Nevares,
Yes.
Ralph Duran.
Yes.
Victor Pérez,
Aye.
and Ivan Colom Villalobos.
Yes.
Item number 15, discussion and action to approve the appointment of Michael Chavez to the Planning and Zoning Commission, Place 6. Mr. Duran?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the appointment of Michael A. Chavez to the Planning and Zoning Commission, Place 6.
Second.
René Rodríguez,
Aye.
Cesar Nevares,
Yes.
Ralph Duran,
Yes.
Victor Pérez,
Aye.
Ivan Colom Villalobos.
Yes.
Item number 16, discussion and action to appoint Ernest Gomez to the Planning and Zoning Commission, Place 7. Mr. Duran?
I'd like to make a motion to appoint Ernest Gomez to the Planning and Zoning Commission, Place 7.
Second?
René Rodríguez,
Aye.
Cesar Nevares,
Yes.
Ralph Duran,
Yes.
Victor Pérez,
Aye.
Ivan Colom Villalobos.
Yes.
Item number 20, discussion and action to appoint Diana Nunez to the Ethics Commission, Place 1.
Make a motion to approve.
Second?
René Rodríguez,
Aye.
Cesar Nevares,
Yes.
Ralph Duran,
Yes.
Victor Pérez,
Aye.
Ivan Colom Villalobos.
Yes.
Item number 21, Discussion and action to appoint Enrique Cisneros to the Planning and Zoning Commission, Place 2. Mr. Duran?
I'd like to make a motion to appoint Enrique Cisneros to the Planning and Zoning Commission, Place 2.
Second?
Rene Rodriguez,
Aye.
Cesar Nevares,
Yes.
Ralph Duran,
Yes.
Victor Perez,
Aye.
Ivan Colom Villalobos.
Yes.
Item number 23, swearing in of newly appointed commissioners.
Enrique Cisneros. Do solemnly swear and affirm that I will faithfully execute the duties of the office of Planning and Zoning Commission
Of the City of Socorro, Texas.
in the city of Socorro, Texas,
And will,
and will, to the best of my ability,
preserve, protect, and defend
preserve, protect, and defend
the Constitution and laws
the Constitution and laws
of the United States
of the United States and of this state.
I state your name.
I, Ernest Gomez,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear and affirm
that I have not directly
or indirectly paid or offered, promised to pay, contributed or promised to contribute any money or value or promise any public or reward to secure my appointment or confirmation thereof.
She has it, Rocio.
Moving back to consent agenda, do we have a motion?
Make a motion to approve. Second.
Rene Rodriguez,
Aye.
Cesar Nevares,
Yes.
Ralph Duran,
Yes.
Victor Perez,
Aye.
and Ivan Colom Villalobos.
Yes.
Item number 7, introduction, first reading, and calling for a public hearing of an ordinance requested by the Texas Department of Transportation to reduce the speed limit on FM 76 North Loop from 55 miles per hour to 45 miles per hour, and from 35 miles per hour to 30 miles per hour on school zones in North Loop.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Rene Rodriguez,
Aye.
Cesar Nevares,
Yes.
Ralph Duran,
Yes.
Victor Perez,
Aye.
and Ivan Colom Villalobos.
Yes.
That's it.
Okay. Item number 8, introduction, first reading, and calling for a public hearing of an ordinance amending Ordinance 429 and Muni Code Article 3 in connection with the criteria and procedures necessary to secure building permits for new construction and improvements and repair of existing structures within the city.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Rene Rodriguez,
I would like to hear what our,
It's a public hearing.
yes.
After we take the vote.
Aye.
No, there's a motion.
Do you want a presentation?
Yeah, I want the presentation.
Good afternoon, Mayor and members of the City Council. Michael Mann, the City Planner. There's been some discussion about the enforcement of the building, the residential, and the fire code. And under the Home Rule City component is that the municipality may enforce all three codes. Currently, we are able to enforce all three of them. However, in the past, there's been actions by other city councils to enable the fire marshal to enact on specific things from the fire code. The example here is fire suppression systems. So essentially is that when there is a commercial building being constructed, the fire marshal has the authority to enforce the rule under the fire code. We also have a building official who can also enforce that as well. However, because of the prior actions taken by other city councils, that responsibility falls on the fire marshal. Recent events have occurred here where under the zoning, we have apartments that normally would be commercial. We do not permit them to be commercial. So essentially is that under the fire code, the fire marshal doesn't have the authority to enforce that. And the item before you as an introduction in the first reading is to take back that responsibility so that the building official has that component. So essentially what we're doing is that we're removing the element when it comes to apartments under the land use for residential.
Ms. Villalobos?
So if this ordinance is changed to, changed, does this mean that what we have in existence is grandfathered, and from this point forward, the new commercial buildings or residential apartments would have to follow the guidelines, or you're gonna go back and retro?
So no, so the clarification before you all is so that the building official has the capability to enforce the fire code with regard to apartments. Normally they're commercial, however, we do not permit them as commercial, they're residential. So the interpretation of the code becomes debated. So under the Home Rule City, the city or the municipality through the building official has the capability to require or not require the fire suppression system. And what the code specifies uniformly across all three of them is that the municipality can have greater restrictions. So in this case, because apartments are not commercially permitted, they fall under land use for residential. And that's the clarification here.
Okay.
To answer your question, it's not retroactive to anything that's already existing unless there's new construction activity like a renovation or a modeling project on that existing structure.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes. Aye.
Yes.
Item number 9, Resolution 558, authorizing the City of Socorro to submit a grant application to the Office on Violence Against Women Fiscal Year 19, enhanced training and services to end abuse in later life program, and designated mayor as the grantee's authorized official with the power to enter into a memorandum of understanding and letter of commitment to receive training and provide training in recognizing and addressing instances of elder abuse.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Alejandra Valadez, Grants Coordinator. This is a grant application to the Office on Violence Against Women. It's for the Elder Abuse grant. And what this grant will do is provide training to local law enforcement agencies, as well as victim service providers, prosecutors' offices, and all of the agencies involved with elder care, in helping us identify instances of elder abuse, exploitation, and neglect. Our Recreation Centers Department, our Rio Vista Center, does have a lot of senior programming, and so they reached out to us with the need for this type of training. We have secured partnerships with the Center Against Sexual and Family Violence. We are still in the process of securing partnerships with the District Attorney's Office. We have received a letter of commitment from the El Paso County Sheriff's Office. And we are in the process of receiving a letter of commitment from the Isleta del Sul Tribal Police for this grant. There is no match for this grant.
Awesome.
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Yes.
Item number 10, discussion and action to direct the city manager or her appointee to waive event permit fees for governmental, nonprofit, religious, and academic community events or parades occurring within the city.
Motion to approve for discussion.
Second.
Question?
Mr. Perez?
I first. All right, because we've kind of treated this, this little puddle of water before, wouldn't it be understood that, well, we talked about the religious festivals or festivities. That may be against, that runs contrary to the separation of church and state. However, wouldn't the religious activities, they're usually under a church of some sort, which would by category be a nonprofit? Either one.
Yeah, I think you're correct. I'd be a lot more comfortable omitting the religious category because then you will get complaints that you're endorsing religious activity or not endorsing religious activity. I think it's cleaner just to say for nonprofits, period, not-for-profits, period. Well, let me say this. Some nonprofits, even though they're nonprofits, they have a very, very narrow scope of activity, very narrow interest. I'm not particularly enthusiastic about saying it's all nonprofits will waive an event permit fee under all circumstances, particularly if the goal of the event is to raise money. I think it'd be cleaner if we said for nonprofits, for the activity, we find that the activity serves a public purpose.
Well, can we just put nonprofits on a case-by-case basis? That defeats the purpose of them coming back up.
But you're picking and
Without saying that, I would say for nonprofits where the city finds that the activity serves a public purpose.
Okay.
Mike, does that make sense to you?
It makes sense. It achieves the same purpose, yes.
For,
So just amend the motion?
yeah, for organizations where their activity is what now?
Serves a public purpose.
Ms. Huerta?
If we approve this item, then staff would go back and create a policy that would have to be reviewed by council in order for you to approve it, and then we would have a process. Right now, it's just directing us that, yes, we can create a policy, that we don't have to bring every item to council, but we'll create the policy, bring it, you all approve it, and then we will start that process.
And then administratively, basically what you're saying is administratively, you handle all of that.
Correct, but we would bring our process, so it
Yes.
could be adopted.
We initially have to
Yes,
approve
yes,
the policy.
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
After you do the policy, we approve it if we like it, and then it'll just be going to you guys instead of coming every time to us.
Correct.
Because the policy is already,
Be aware if we take the form of an ordinance amendment, because I think some of our event fees are controlled by ordinances.
That could be, yes.
okay.
Alrighty, so then I'll go ahead, if I may.
Ms. Villalobos had a question, sorry.
I have a concern with the, when you're out there researching it with nonprofit organizations that serves the purpose of the public. You could have organizations that do serve the public, but it's in a negative way. So I think we have to kind of stick to, you know, we need to stick, that's a wide range. I think we need to really look at this before we move forward.
And we'll bring it back to you.
Okay.
Not if you feel comfortable with it.
I think that,
Mr. Perez?
I think that we, instead of saying public purpose, public interest, and I think that that might kind of massage the words a little bit better in terms of the understanding that it's in the interest of the public, not necessarily, and by that you would negate negative activities, I think. But, I mean, they can research that.
Right.
Mr. Perez?
So, Madam Mayor, if I may go ahead and amend my motion and have the directive to the city manager or the appointee in terms of the event waiving permit or waiving events, waiving the waiving of permits, events or event permits, to strike the word religious, and then to add nonprofit organizations. And this is just can be changed without changing the spirit of what the intent is. Nonprofit organization whose activities serve a public interest or serve the public interest.
Second.
Yes. Mayor Cruz is one of our speakers on this item.
Sorry for jumping the gun. I just saw you getting ready to call Mr. Rodriguez. You let me know, Miss. Oh, I'm done. I'm gone. I'm going. Let's see. What was I gonna say about this one? I had two things to say. I had mentioned last time, Mr. Medina and Ms. Colombia Lobos, we talked about this. I think it was at the last meeting. We talked about if we're going to be waiving the permit fee, that maybe the City of Socorro logo should be included in these events as sort of a sponsor of the event, since we are waiving the fee. It's an idea. And that one of the conditions should be that the event should be free, not just in the public interest, but that it actually should be free. Because if it's an event where someone can't gain free entrance into, then I don't see the public entrance, since we do live in a low socioeconomic community. I really do think that it needs to be a free event. Most kermeses are, most bazaars are, many festivals are from the church, so I hope that's taken into consideration, Ms. Rodarte. And I also think that if this is something that the City Council is going to move it administratively, which I think is going to save time at these meetings, since you guys always approve them, then I think that we should get a report, though, at how many fees were waived for the month and what events were approved. I think that shows transparency, and I think that would be helpful for the public. I also would tell Mr. Perez that your motion doesn't necessarily direct them to go and create a policy, because the way that the agenda item's written
Time is up.
doesn't say that. Thank you.
Mr. Rodriguez?
I think that any opinion is a good opinion, but I would just like to put my 2 cents into this. I don't believe that we should put a logo in any of these events, because then you're going to put the city in the liability if something happens in these events. You know, it's just like in the business world. We're told that we don't carry our emblems on our shirts when we go out to a bar or a restaurant or anywhere else outside employment. Why? Because if I do something, then my company is liable because I have it in the shirt. It's the same concept. I don't think that it's a good idea, but thank you for your input.
Mr. Perez?
Mr. Martinez, does the item or my motion, is it sufficient to direct the staff to create that policy?
Yes.
Yes.
Rene Rodriguez,
Aye.
Cesar Nevares,
Yes.
Ralph Duran,
Yes.
Victor Perez,
Aye.
Ivan Colombia Lobos.
Yes.
Item number 11, discussion and action to direct the city manager or her appointee to assess urban and regional planning activities, plans, reports, and documents that include, but not limited to, land use, environmental protection, economic development, transportation, community design, housing, park, and open space planning within the city.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Good afternoon again, Michael Mean, I'm the city planner. The concept before you is to enable the city manager or the appointee to assemble all planning activities at the urban level, at the regional level, that encompass all components that have nexus to city operation. So essentially is that we'll bring back an action plan identifying all the gaps that are in those reports, and then follow up with a solution to mitigate those gaps. Along with that is a concept of developing a comprehensive approach for regional projects, parks, thoroughfares, and et cetera. Part of that assessment also comes with a cost evaluation for budgeting. So essentially, we'll come back and have a 10-year plan identifying the needs of the city and how we can get there without having to fully execute a comprehensive plan, because there's one that's out there. It's just that we need to tweak it a bit so that we can go in the direction that you all want to go in.
Thank you.
Rene Rodriguez,
Aye.
Cesar Nevares, Ralph Duran,
Yes.
Victor Perez,
Aye.
Ivan Colom Villalobos.
Yes.
Item number 12, discussion and action on approval request to waive the event permit fee for the annual Bazaar of San Felipe de Jesus Catholic Church.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Oh, is that aye?
Rene Rodriguez,
Aye.
Cesar Nevares,
Yes.
Ralph Duran,
Yes.
Victor Perez,
Aye.
Ivan Colom Villalobos.
Yes.
Item number 13, discussion and action to approve Mayor Elia Garcia to attend the NALIO Texas Statewide Policy Institute on Higher Education, which will be held January 14 to 15, 2019 at the Grand Hyatt San Antonio, Texas.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Ms. Villalobos?
Can anyone else add to this meeting?
This is,
training?
I went ahead and applied to this invitation through online, and everything's already paid for by the organization.
Okay.
So there's at no cost to the city right now.
Okay. And I did see the deadline, which was November 9, 2018. Okay, thank you.
Aye.
Yes.
Yes.
Aye.
Yes.
Item number 14, discussion and action to direct staff on a feasibility study to understand the financial impact and responsibility to the city to implement quiet zones.
Motion to approve for discussion.
Second.
Michael Mena, city planner. There was a request by the city manager for me to evaluate the possibility of feasibility study regarding quiet zones. Quiet zones, as mentioned earlier, is an ability at the local level by the federal government to allow municipalities to examine the removal or the abatement of noise. This noise is caused when the trains are traveling. They're required under federal law, and it's actually a prescribed component of a sequence of events to sound the alarm that the train is approaching. And so what I did is that I essentially looked at the area of the city. We have 5 control points that would essentially, in my opinion, affect mobility and accessibility of emergency services. There happens to be no sufficient structure for us to use in terms of a bridge or a detour in the event that an accident occurs. A couple of weeks ago, there was an incident where there was a train that hit a pedestrian, and it had to close for several hours. I really don't know how much. But essentially, is that what is before you is to move forward or not with the feasibility study. And I can answer any specific questions related to my study.
Mr. Rodriguez?
We did this back in 2013. Nothing came of it when I was here. We've had this issue before. I understand that, but in the last 3 years, there have been, I believe, 4 incidents. One of those, a pedestrian was walking, and from witnesses' accounts, it's all hearsay, but witnesses say that the person had some headphones or something. He was walking, couldn't hear, because, you know, it was, the headphones were blast. And it's very important. Those are issues that we have to face because it takes a lot of time for the sheriff department to come in and do the investigation. And it's hours, 6, 8 hours, 12 hours. I mean, those are issues that we have to see. I think that we could look at it and see what's the possibility. But keep in mind that it is an issue. It is an issue. And we have to look at safety above all.
Ms. Villalobos?
Based on what I'm hearing here is that most likely we won't be able to eliminate the train from using their horn 4 times, 5 times before they go through the cross. The only thing that I did do on my own was I monitored the train for maybe 2 or 3 hours. The train passed. It was at night. I had just the gentleman that asked us to put this on the agenda. I was texting him, and while I was texting him, I was hearing the train pass and pass and pass, and it honked its horn, it honked its horn, it honked its horn at every exit. I could hear him. I counted the 5 times and it was going pretty fast. It rang its horn, and I counted the section, the bypasses, and from my property. So I heard Bauman, and then I could hear, there's, the next one would be by Clint, San Elizario. There's about 1, 2, or 3 there, entrances, and I could still hear him. How about, maybe it's too loud, way too loud, and I could hear it at my home, clearly with all the doors closed. So I'm thinking maybe the reduction of the horn, I don't know. I mean, if I can hear it all the way to Clint and Bauman, and I heard it perfectly. I mean, it wasn't, my windows weren't open, you know. And I don't live right next to the train, but my windows do rattle when the train passes by.
Right, so I think that it is very important, as we would determine that this is what's called the Doppler effect, where you hear it and then it's continuous. My understanding of the federal requirements, that they're absolute. So unless there's a feasibility study that makes a determination that the noise contour levels are affecting the residents, that has to be determined. So part of the feasibility study would look at those contours. As sound travels, it dissipates in terms of the magnitude of the sound. So essentially is that if, let's just say that we do a feasibility study and it is determined that it is feasible to do this, there's several things that the city can do in terms of the section of road that's going to be mitigated. We could close that entire access point, or we can also introduce time of day where it closes. So for example, it could close at night. It would have to open in the morning. The important thing is that if you all direct us to do a feasibility study, we also have to incur the maintenance of that mitigation.
Mr. Perez?
If you noticed, I was the one that introduced this back in 2013. And at that time, I asked your predecessor two predecessors ago, to look into it. And in fact, when I guess it's Union Pacific or whatever the train organization is, to look at the possibility of doing some kind of, even maybe a wall. I'm not sure how feasible that would be. But all the response I got was, yes, we'll look into it, but it never came back. And so, as part of this feasibility study, I'd like, if you would please incorporate a section on the feasibility of a wall. Again, because the intent was to mirror what the city of El Paso had. And the only difference there is that it's located within a neighborhood, specifically in the Ramona area, where they've got like some kind of walls, structures to mitigate the noise. I'm not sure if that would be something that would be successful here, simply because, to your point about the Doppler effect, that because we have an open area, the sound will travel either way, regardless of having a wall or not. But I'm not sure, I'm not a scientist, so I would like for that to be noted formally, so that we can rule out, that we did, or say that yes, we considered these things, but either it will work or what won't work. Whatever the report that comes back might say. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Please.
Mayor, we have 2 speakers. Damián Marian Moreira.
I don't know how much time I have. I was cut off earlier. How much time do I have now?
You can start now, Mr.
Huh?
Moreira. You can speak now.
How many minutes?
A minute and a half.
A minute and a half. The 3 minutes went quickly. Okay. The two parts that I want to mention where I was cut off was that in my recent emails to the mayor and a couple of representatives, I've been real hopeful that it's a more receptive attitude to this issue. So I'm really glad, and I received an invitation to come back and present this problem. So I'm really hopeful and grateful that the mayor and a couple of representatives is taking this issue seriously. And the family and I are really concerned about District 2 because the train track runs in between the northwest part of Socorro. The train track runs right parallel to Alameda Avenue and North Loop Road. So those neighborhoods must really get it badly if we hear it on Wynn Road, you know. Sister-in-law of mine was visiting 2 weeks, and she was woken up, you know, and she brought it up as an issue. The other thing that I wanted to mention real quickly was that when I wasn't getting much of a response in the past, from past Socorro councils, one of the vague responses I got was that it might be too expensive to have railroad quiet zones, you know, and even though the city of El Paso did it, it might be too expensive for us. I called the El Paso County's office about this issue, and the representative there told me that all incorporated cities like Socorro, they have a legal right to...
Mr. Moreira, your time is up.
Okay,
Mayor.
just briefly, to have a legal right to negotiate with Union Pacific Railroad about the noise level or slowing down the train or the frequency of the noise horns. But we have more power than we think to negotiate directly with them.
Ms. Villalobos?
Well, I was just gonna ask if we could give him a little bit more time to speak. To finish.
Second.
Thank you.
Can we have a motion, please?
Make a motion to allow Mr. Maureda to finish his presentation to us. Second.
Okay, thank you.
We gotta vote first, hold on.
There's,
Cesar
there,
Nevares?
Just a second, just a second.
oh, sure.
Cesar Nevares? Ralph Durant?
Yes.
Victor Perez?
Aye.
And Yvonne Colom Villalobos?
Yes.
You may continue, Mr. Moreira.
Okay, thank you. Basically, I was wrapping it up, that we do have as an incorporated city, we have the legal right to negotiate directly with the Union Pacific Railroad. And we can bring up issues, you know, if we need the residents, like a survey of District 2, so we have the public ahead of us. I'm sure there are many people that would be willing to sign or, you know, at least assess how bad the problem is. And that would be less expensive and more, it would be expedited quickly if we can negotiate something legally with Union Pacific Railroad. But we have that legal right as an incorporated city. I just, out of anecdote, one Lower Valley resident that wrote to the city of El Paso about the noise, the title of the article was "Train Horns Really Annoying." Do we need the trains blowing their horns 8 or 10 times at 3 a.m.? Are there so many cars rushing through the signals at that time that it requires the trains to wake up hundreds of people? Is it not enough that we have red lights, bells, extended arms, and signs? Stop the insanity. The best solution to severe noise pollution is to change the policy and shut those horns down. I could pick up his emotions, but there's a lot of truth in what he was saying. And if the residents are surveyed, I'm sure they would express themselves likewise. We don't want sleep disturbance, you know, for our residents. That's a health issue. So I hope your assessment includes a survey of especially District 2. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Miriam Cruz?
First, I just want to thank the backup material that was provided for this item. Not every agenda item has this sort of backup material, so thank you for that, Mr. Medina. And the emails as well that are included to kind of give people who are reading this an understanding as to why it was brought up. I was a little worried when I just read the agenda item because I used to live closer to the tracks than I do now. And to me, whenever I do hear it at 10 p.m. at night when I'm going to sleep, sort of a nice reminder. It's sort of reminiscent to me. I can understand that at 2 o'clock in the morning, if I lived right next to it and it's blowing its horns and it's waking me up, it's going to be an issue. And so nighttime quiet zones, I think, make sense. But permanent structures like a wall, I don't know. You know, I don't know. I don't know about that. But I think nighttime, because that is sort of the health that we're talking about, it's really the nighttime when it's an issue. The only other the issue that I thought about was, you know, there have been accidents. There's accidents all the time. I think we probably are known for that here in Socorro. I mean, there's accidents all the time happening at the railroad tracks. It's sad and it sucks, but it happens too frequently. And so I would worry about that as well. And so what else we might need to do to keep our residents safe. Thank you.
Mr. Duran?
I think the term quiet zone is a little misleading. I think a lot of people think that in the middle of the night they're gonna lower the volume on their horns. They're not going to. By law, they have to alert 4 times. I believe it's 4 times. And the quiet zone is not, what it is building a wall to dampen the sound of the horn, day or night. The quiet zone, that's misleading. And I think also, we also have to look at if we put a damper there, a wall, somebody driving up may not see the train. And they got their music blaring, and it may be counterproductive. We may, adding to, plus the fact of, let's say that we do find the funding for it through grants or whatever, there's a vagrancy problem too. Anytime you can't be seen, the criminals will be there, dealing drugs or doing drugs or whatever. So that was another thing we have to look at, is the safety of the public by what we build. And so I think we need to look at and think about, we can't stop the trains. That's not going to happen. We can't stop them from blowing their horns. That's a federal law. By blowing the horn, they are protecting the people in the way of the tracks. So I think that until we find some funding, or they find a better way to stop this. I live 2 blocks from the train, so I can hear it. I'm kind of, used to it now. I don't get up at night when I hear and during the day, I couldn't tell you how many times it passes by, because I guess I'm immune to them now, because I hear it 24/7. But people that aren't used to it, that do live further away, I think they are more attuned to what the train is doing. So I don't know what the answer is here. I don't think the walls, I think that's what they're asking for right now, is the walls. And I don't think that we have the funds, number one. I mean, we don't have the funds to do what we absolutely have to do, and this would be an addition. I think it might add to the problem of people getting hit at our crossings. So I don't know what and I don't know, what would the cost be for a feasibility study?
I really don't know, simply because the magnitude of the investigation may or may not require noise modeling. So the direction could be for me to assess it, trying to use some form of noise abatement and measurement. However, there are sophisticated models that are out there that are utilized to make that determination. So simply, it's just like when TxDOT builds a roadway, they are required under federal law to examine what the noise levels are. So if it's a new roadway and there is no development, then they are, if you will, protected. They don't have to provide noise abatement. However, a lot of the construction that's coming through the MPO funding mechanism requires TxDOT and any other body that has federal aid to examine that abatement. In the event that it is determined that the decibels are passing that threshold, they are required to provide that mitigation. So essentially is that it just becomes a component how sophisticated we want to be. Now, in terms of the feasibility study, and if you will, looking at the specific areas, the 5 locations, there are some that we can just automatically look at and say that abatement, you have open space. So the Doppler effect is just gonna shift. There is no need to do noise modeling there. However, in the concentrations where there are residential uses, we may have that capability. But I think that through the city manager, I can come back and give an assessment of the sophistication of the feasibility study.
Mr. Perez?
Just 2 more comments. And I appreciate you taking into account looking at the wall, just to make sure that we examine that. But also, my final 2 points were that maybe we can look at natural sound reducers like trees that we could plant along along the railroad track. I know that they're picky about their right of way in terms of what goes there. Instead of looking into that, maybe as a natural sound barrier. Also, last thing to add to Mr. Duran's point is that in terms of the horn, and I understand that it blares, I hear it too where I live. The thing is that the arms, unfortunately, aren't always very reliable as far as going up. And so you need to have the horn, if not for anything else, to have the person that is going to cross to make sure that they actually can hear it. And whether they can, I mean, that's obviously, it seems debatable, but I understand the necessity. Not that I like it, but I understand the necessity of having it. So, but if we could go ahead and look into just the natural sound barriers and the wall, I would really appreciate that. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Ms. Villalobos?
I think in order for us not to go into spending all this money, I think we could do, or the staff could do a research of a town that has gone through the same thing and what is it that they did to correct or could not correct the situation. I'm sure the information is out there before we even move forward with a study that's going to cost us money that is going to end up in the same place where we're at right now, which is nowhere.
Right, and truth be told is that the city of San Antonio have done a very excellent job in the abatement, and so we can distribute that information as well.
Okay.
Mr. Nevares?
How many times has this issue been brought up, as far as you know?
Well, right now we know that in 2013.
Okay. The same gentleman?
Correct. And he started up again.
Okay.
In 2013 there was a different administration.
Okay. Out of the population of how many?
32.
Okay. We've all lived here, across the street from the railroad tracks. You become immune to this. I don't think we have the funding for this right now.
And that's why, I'm sorry, and this is why I'm asking that before we spend any money, maybe we should just look to see if anybody else out there, any other city has gone through the same thing. What is it that they did and worked with the railroad? What is it that, I know our challenge here is that we don't have enough streets to divert the traffic. So we cannot close the 5 entrances or exits or roads that we have. We cannot. I mean, we're already up the, that's already a huge challenge.
Exactly.
However, I do believe, I mean, there's information, free information out there, and we should start there and just not say no, and not do nothing about it.
I say we need to allocate
Mr.
funding.
Nevares?
We need to allocate funding to where it's needed. Infrastructure, streets, sidewalks. These studies can be put back in the back burner for now.
Mr. Perez?
Well, I think Mr. Duran had.
Mr. Duran?
I think Mr. Perez's idea of investigating whether trees or shrubbery or whatever, something natural, should be looked at also. That would be a lot more cost effective than a wall. And I don't know if it's been done anywhere, but that would be something to look at.
Mr. Perez?
I said it was a final comment, but apparently it's not. The only thing that I would recommend is that, short of actually spending money on doing the models and those kinds of things, that you come back to us and let us know, this is where I'm at, this is where it's going to require that we invest some funding. And at that point, yeah, you know, we can make that determination. I can't speak for the council, but make that determination at that point if we want to proceed with that. That would be my recommendation.
Ms. Villalobos?
Yes, and that's exactly what I'm saying. There's a lot of free information that we can, again, go out there. We could be surprised. There could be a community out there that did something inexpensive, and it reduced the noise for the residents that do live along the railroad tracks. So that's my 2 cents.
The motion was to approve, okay?
Well,
Let me go ahead and amend my motion to proceed with a study, with feasibility study, and to come back to council if any expenditures need to be made or any investment needs to be made for the
Second.
budget.
okay.
No.
No, sir.
We're done with this. Let's move on.
Rene Rodriguez,
Aye.
Cesar Nevares,
Yes.
Ralph Duran.
Yes.
Victor Perez,
Aye.
Ivan Colombia.
Yes.
Item number 17, discussion and action to approve Representative at Large Rene Rodriguez and any other council member to attend TML Regional 4 meeting in Vinton, Texas on January 18, 2019.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Mr. Rodriguez?
Could we move this item to the end after 22?
After 22.
Yes.
You're talking about the item we just talked about?
Yes.
Move it to the end?
Move it to after we take 22.
Okay, so I'll rescind my motion.
I would like,
So at this time, I'd like to go ahead and move item number 17 to be discussed after item number 22.
second.
Rene Rodriguez,
Aye.
Cesar Nevares,
Yes.
Ralph Duran.
Yes.
Victor Perez,
Aye.
Ivan Colombia.
Yes.
Item number 18, discussion and action to find and approve a location for the Veterans Park.
Make a motion to approve for our staff to look for a location for our Veterans Park. Since we moved it and we used it, the old Veterans Park for our police department. And I would just like to direct staff so that they can go and look at different locations. Because we still have 6 parks in our inventory that are vacant. There's no anything, I mean, we could look at those as well. So I just want, for staff, this is the item, just for staff to go out and look at another different location.
So, okay. Second.
Rene Rodriguez,
Aye.
Cesar Nevares,
Yes.
Ralph Duran.
Yes.
Victor Perez,
Aye.
and Ivan Colombia.
Yes.
Item number 19, discussion and action to approve a moratorium for storage of vehicles.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Mr. Rodriguez?
This item is to reflect that there are more areas in the city that people are bringing in cars, vehicles, putting in their properties, and then it's starting to look like a junkyard in the middle of a subdivision. So this is to eliminate that because they're not taking any permits out. We don't want to be in the business of looking like
The junkyard.
a junkyard here in the city of Socorro. It's time that we clean this mess up, and it should start. You know, it has been starting, but I mean, this is something that is just gonna move us forward.
Mr. Perez?
And just for the record, staff has been really good about responding to those concerns. When I've called, they've responded to those. Unfortunately, though, the city will come in, do its job, they'll clear the property, then 2 months later, they're back in. And so it's gonna be a continuous effort.
Yes.
Yes.
Ms. Villalobos?
What was the motion? Was it just for approve?
To approve.
Or do we have to change it to,
Yeah, I was gonna say that. Is there a process? What you're trying to do, I'll be more specific than that. A moratorium seems to contemplate, definition contemplates a suspension of that activity.
Yes, sir.
See, if you approve that, what you're saying is we're no longer going to issue those kinds of permits, which you probably don't want to do. If you have a standing ordinance that says this permit is available if you meet these conditions, well, then if they meet the conditions, you should be issuing the permit. If you're going to change, if you want to reduce the number of permits that you issue or reduce them to zero, then you probably need to change the ordinance itself. Change the standards to say, under the following conditions, you heighten the standard, you make it you require barriers from that so it's not visible or it has to be of a certain size or something like that. I wouldn't, given that the ordinance stands now, I wouldn't simply say we're suspending the issuance of all permits.
So what do you recommend?
How did the city handle it?
Yeah, I think you want, one of two things. You want to direct staff to come forward with a proposal to amend the ordinance
Okay.
such that
We no longer,
there are fewer of them, they're less visible, they're less troublesome, that, there's less visual impact on the city, that kind of stuff. Maybe limit them to certain areas or not within X number of feet of certain, major thoroughfares, schools, that sort of thing. There's that many options.
yeah, they're everywhere.
And also, what I thought I heard was it sounded like beyond the issue of permitting was also a question of enforcement.
It's both, I think.
Mr. Perez?
It's both, actually. It's the enforcement. But the thing is that these activities are on residential property. And so we might want to actually tighten up the consequences
Yes.
for those kinds of operations
So,
That was my
on
concern.
those,
I'm sorry.
on private property.
Mhm.
Is that possible?
Yes, you have, how do I say it? You have at least two kinds of ordinances now. You have the residential use ordinance, the zoning ordinance that describes what uses are permissible, and that addresses the number of vehicles that can be parked, right?
Yes.
Single-family residence. But don't forget, you also have a nuisance ordinance, a nuisance abatement ordinance for, weeds, trash, debris, inoperable vehicles, and the like. Or vehicles that are standing in order, I think it says 30 days or something like that.
Right.
Yeah, I think you could easily amend that as well.
Ms. Villalobos?
And right along the lines of what he's stating, at this point, when they remove everything, they'll take it away for a month or two or a few days, and then they bring it back. Do we go back and fine them, or just give them another warning? What is it that we do? And if we fine them, what's the fee?
Correct, the citations are continued to issue, but so you go out and issue a notice of violation, and the owner cleans up, right? That notice is closed at that point. So 2 months later, we get another report. We go out there, we have to start the process all over again. We can't just cite because that's the way our ordinance is written,
So,
right? That you will issue out a notice of violation, provide the resident 7 days to comply, then you go out and issue a final notice, and then you cite. Okay, and sometimes these facilities they rather pay the fine because they're making money. So they rather pay the fine even on a daily. And we had a situation here on North Loop that we had to go through the injunction, start the conversations that we were gonna sue them before they cease the operation. Because they're making money, so they're gonna pay the fine even if it's daily.
And therefore, that's a
Mr.
continuous
Nevares?
problem.
I'm not-
Correct.
Okay.
And it's really out of control.
So when are we gonna change this? Let's make some changes.
So my suggestion to everybody that's here is those fines have to be hefty per car and per visit after your warning. And that it stands there for, the remaining of your life, or, as long as you live there, or et cetera, because sometimes these homes are sold and people don't know, but it has to be permanent.
Correct. And also, when we want to go out there and enforce, we have to enforce as a whole. We can't pick and choose because they're elderly, we're not going to find them, or we're not compassionate. It's kind of across the board. We can't, and I think it should be with every policy that we have, and we're enforcing that the fines are hefty, and in order for us to be able to move forward.
And, I'm sorry, we also have to educate the public. We've done somewhat of a job, but I think we need, commercial, bigger, something that states what our new rules are and what we're doing. And, that's just my suggestion.
And part of the process of issuing out a notice of violation, that's part of educating the public, right? You're not gonna go out there and tell them, remove this. We're educating the public, hey, this isn't allowed. You have 7 days to clear up. There's people that come to you and tell you, there's too much, can you give us a little bit of more time? And we kind of work with every resident, but that's part of our objective is when the code enforcers go out there, that's our number one, is we educate the public, because there's publics that don't know that there's even ordinances that exist. But then there's residents that take advantage of the system.
That's what I was gonna say, that there's a difference between the elderly that perhaps have, I don't know, an older car, and it gives them trouble, whatever, and it stands there for a while, versus a property owner who knowingly stores their cars because they're going to be shipped off to Mexico to be sold off as parts or whatever. And
However, in the policy, we can't distinguish, we can't pick and choose, right? We have to kind of enforce across the board.
Mr. Duran?
And I think this touches on what the gentleman came up with earlier in the residential areas where they're parking too many cars. This needs to be added to it, that if you're gonna park, you can only, if you have a 2-car garage, you can have 2 cars. Not 2 cars and then one on the grass, another one, and then backing them up. You got 4 cars blocking the sidewalks. That, I think, can be incorporated also with this in our ordinance. Just change the ordinance so that they're not, 10 cars at a house. And it's all, in the Valles especially, because we walk through there. I mean, there was violation after violation after violation. And sometimes you had to walk out in the street to get around the cars that were parked across the sidewalk. So that's something that we need to also incorporate also to alleviate the problems in our residential areas.
Yes, Mr. Duran, and that would be under a different ordinance, so you would have to place an item on the agenda.
Okay.
So we can direct it and start working on that ordinance. And right now, we'll work on the storage section and amend it, and then bring it back to council.
Ms. Villalobos?
And if I'm not mistaken, a lot of these subdivisions have covenants that actually state the number of vehicles that can be on the property or at the property, and so we have to look at that too, because those subdivisions have their own covenants.
So Jim, in closing, could we still put a moratorium in while we are revamping our ordinances? Or would I have to bring a different agenda item altogether and just say, look, just revamp our ordinances so that we won't, or limit and not in residentials and stuff like that, and just let?
I would advise against the moratorium, because if you do that, you're literally contradicting the existing ordinance now that says you will issue a permit if these conditions are met. I think the correct way to do it, the legally correct way to do it, is make the ordinance change first. And I think your staff is probably in a really good position to give you multiple options. They understand the goal, reduce the number of stored vehicles and the visibility of them. That's standard policy. That's a very good example of policy creation assignment that your staff has expertise in. And then separately, the enforcement item, the enforcement arm, give us a policy or some kind of amendment so that the enforcement is strong. I think they can do that as well.
Okay, so then we delete this item, bring the other two, or can I use this?
I think, you've got fair notice. I mean, it says approve a moratorium. That's close enough. I think you've got fair notice. I think you could direct staff to pursue those two ordinances, and then bring the proposed amendments back to you, or maybe even bring proposals for amendments back to you.
So then that would be my motion, to bring those 2 ordinances to us.
Second.
Yeah, okay, good.
All right, second.
And we have a speaker for this item? Miriam Cruz?
Mr. Rodriguez, I'm glad you mentioned, you talked about the agenda item because the backup material wasn't very helpful for me to understand what we were going to talk about today, for me. And I don't think for the gentleman, because maybe he would have signed up as well if he saw the agenda item and maybe this is something that he talked about during public comment. Had he read it and known that maybe it applied to his concern, maybe he would have signed up as well. Anyway, that's why I signed up. I was like, I don't know what he's going to talk about. Let me just sign up because I might want to say something. So the last meeting I talked about 18-wheelers being parked at residential houses now, still right now, especially during the holidays. And for me, it's not so much the eyesore as much as the safety of individuals having to go around them or not being able to see across the 18-wheeler in the way. It's also about maintenance of our streets because those neighborhoods are not made for those types of cars to be in there. As far as the subdivisions, I agree that they shouldn't be there. The problem is though, or that so many cars should be there, the problem is that by allowing so many R3s in the city of Socorro and even now with some R2s, there is a whole lot of cars that you guys can't control because you allowed that many people to move in there. So, we have to think about that going forward.
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Yes.
Item number 22, discussion and action to limit the approval of council members that attend conference trainings to avoid a walking quorum. Mr. Duran?
Motion to approve for discussion.
Second.
Mr. Duran?
Reason I put this on, other than saving money, is how do I want to put it, the probability of a walking quorum at a meeting or conference when we're out of town, not at a social event, but at a training, when we're given information and then it is discussed. We have to remember the Texas Open Meetings Law, which does prohibit walking quorums, and I think if we can go to these in less than a quorum, and when whoever goes brings a report back to the others. I think you did that with when we went to the place, yeah, Terrell. You brought a report back of what we'd learned there, and that's I think what we should do with these when we go to other meetings, rather than run the risk of violating the Texas Open Meetings Law and savings to the city. That's the reason why I put this on.
Mr. Perez?
Mr. Martinez, for my own clarification, the walking quorum, what that means is that that's when 3 or more, obviously a quorum an unofficial meeting takes place where things are discussed and things are decided upon, correct? Topics of discussion are just that, topics of discussion.
I don't think I would stop short of decided upon. I mean,
Okay.
It's the deliberation. Once you've got, in our case, 4 members in the same room, and the discussion relates to city business, policy, politics, whatever, then you've got a quorum. And because you haven't posted it, it's not open to the public, it's not, you haven't given 72 hours notice, all that kind of stuff.
Okay, thank you.
I will tell you that the
and then we're
Well,
okay.
I think it's okay.
That's what it says. That's not, like I'll tell you, that's not in the statute. That's the open meetings handbook, and that just seems to recognize the practical reality that, look, there are gonna be press conferences from the entire council present. There's gonna be a candidate forum where everybody goes to the appease forum, and it's probably unavoidable. I can tell you that the standard advice from municipal lawyers is nonetheless, yeah, but don't have a quorum there if you're gonna do it. It's just better idea not to have the quorum, and if you're gonna have a quorum there,
Sit separate.
yeah, don't talk to each other. Sit in different corners of the room.
Mr. Perez?
Because I can see where whoever attends, they can sit at a session and be there. I mean, I see no
Conflict of interest.
conflict. I mean, you're there to learn, and irrespective of who goes, the information is just as valuable. And I don't see why. I think that among us, well, those that go, I mean, like Mother says, you should know better, you know.
Exactly.
So I think that that would be my point, is that we are on our own.
Policing.
No, I guess what's the word? On the honor system, not to engage in those kinds of discussions.
So,
Mr. Rodriguez?
on that note, I don't see an issue. Me and Mia Villalobos were in the front desk, in the front table, and Mr. Duran and Mr. Nevares were the midsection, somewhere in the back. You know, we don't go there and sit and hold hands together and you know, say kumbaya. You know, I mean, we know what we're going for there. I speak for myself. You know, I go there to learn so that I can be a better council person to move the city forward. Okay? So if something is spoken or I say something to somebody, you know, I direct to one or the other. You know, it's the same thing with Mr. Nevares or Mr. Ralph or Duran or Ms. Villalobos. But one of the things is that trainings are trainings. And if we don't go to trainings, then what kind of representatives we're going to be if we don't learn? You know, how many times haven't council people gone to, and then they just do something wrong? We've seen it in council. And then not until they go get training, then they understand what is right and what is wrong, what we can and can't do. It's very important. It's very important. You know, I understand, but this is nonsense. I mean, the city of El Paso does the same thing. You know, I've traveled, and we've been on the same plane. So it's not a big issue. You know.
Ms. Villalobos?
So, usually I sit by myself at these meetings because I'm a social butterfly. I like to meet other people. This time around, I happened to sit with Mr. Rodriguez, this last meeting. But I will tell you, I always try to bring up subjects of family, of other things other than our politics, other than our politics, for the same reason, because I don't want to be accused of being in a walking forum or anything like that. And yes, Mr. Rodriguez is correct. We go there to learn. A lot of times it's repeated stuff, but it doesn't really sink in till you're actually going through the motions, because you could be sitting there and saying, wait a minute, our city doesn't go through that. And then months later, weeks later, you're saying, now I remember learning this, and now I know exactly what they're talking about. Because they don't really give you examples. Every course is about 45 minutes, and they're going through it, you know, and they do answer maybe 5 or 6 questions, and that's about it. So I don't think there's a problem. I don't think we have a problem with it. We've all been together, and sorry, but we laugh a lot because we're making fun of each other. It has nothing to do with politics. We're just messing around with each other just to make it fun, you know? So I personally think we should delete this item.
Second.
Mr. Duran?
First of all, anything regarding our city is not nonsense. I mean, we have a discussion. At one other meeting, I think we just need to be conscious of what we're doing. One meeting that we went to, we were a group of us, and there was a quorum, and some city business was brought up, and I had to say, hey, we can't talk about that. And I think now, if we're all aware of it, and I think sometimes we're not aware of it, we just need to be more aware of what we're doing and more diligent about not discussing city matters when there's 4 of us together. So I'm gonna go ahead and remove or delete my item, amend my motion and delete item number 22.
And Mayor,
Ms. Villalobos?
just for clarifications, I don't believe I was at that meeting that you're discussing. So just clarification.
Second.
I wasn't there.
Rene Rodriguez,
Aye.
Cesar Nevares,
Yes.
Ralph Durant,
Yes.
Victor Perez,
Aye.
Ivan Colombia Lopez.
Yes.
Item number 17, discussion and action to approve Representative at Large Rene Rodriguez and any other council member to attend TML Regional 4 meeting in Vinton, Texas on January 18, 2019.
Motion to approve, second.
Well, the reason is our neighboring cities are going to host the TML Regional 4. I am your president of District Number 4. Want to just throw that out there. And we're going to host it here, so anybody is welcome to come down and see what everybody has to say.
Ms. Rodarte?
I just want to clarify, we're not hosting, it's Vinton, Texas
Yes.
that's hosting
Yes.
the meeting.
No, our neighboring city.
Okay, because
That's
I
exactly
heard
what I
you
said.
said here, and I'm
Oh,
like,
no,
we're
no,
not
no,
hosting
not here,
here.
not here.
Local.
Our
It's in
neighboring city.
Vinton, and the registration is $40.
Mhm.
So I don't know who's going, so we can make the reservations tomorrow.
Ms. Villalobos?
Yes, ma'am. And I want to encourage everybody in council to please go. Vinton, the mayor and his staff are awesome people. And if I'm not mistaken, they came to ours and supported us. And they promise that they're going to do better, step up, better than Socorro. I have no idea, but they did say they were going to step it up. So, but long story short, I hope that we can all attend and support them.
I'm looking at Mr. Gresham.
I know, I know.
It's like they're gonna
I told him, I promise you, I told him, you cannot go, you cannot do better than the churros that we had, fresh churros that we had. So he said that he will.
So who will be in attendance? Just so we can put it in front of the motion then.
I will. You can add me to it.
I'll be there.
Aye.
Yes.
Yes.
Aye, and I'll let you.
Yes.
Motion to move into executive session?
So move.
Second.
Aye.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.